I didn't die, Rachel.
The last thing Rachel Marin expected to hear was her brother's voice. Not after 25 years. Not after the accident. Not in a dream that felt more like a memory than a vision. And certainly not with those words. I didn't die, Rachel. I just went back. He stood barefoot, glowing faintly, in a desert that didn't resemble any place on Earth. There were no stars above me, only a vast violet sky, pulsing like a living thing. The sand beneath him shimmered with patterns that moved and rearranged in perfect synchrony, as if echoing some forgotten frequency. His eyes, though, those were the same. Still 12 years old. Still Eli. Rachel tried to speak, but her throat felt locked. Her body was paralyzed, not in fear, but in awe. A strange peace settled inside her chest, replacing the sharp ache she'd carried for 2.5 decades. Then Eli took a step closer and added, "They're calling you now, like they called me." When she woke up, it was still dark, and her hands were bleeding. Sedona, Arizona. Present day. Rachel Marin was 37. I am a quiet literature professor at the local community college, known for her calm demeanor and minimalist life. To her students, she was intelligent but distant. To her neighbors, polite but detached. No one knew what she carried. No one knew about Eli. He died in 1998, or so they said. She remembered the crash vividly, a hiking trail collapse. They said the rock shelf gave way. The body was never found, but Rachel saw him fall with her own eyes. She never forgave the canyon, never forgave herself. And over the years she buried him. Until that dream, until that voice. The bleeding hands confused her, small cuts across both palms as if she'd grabbed something sharp in her sleep. But her bed sheets were clean, no glass nearby, just the notebook she always kept by the bed. When she opened it, her breath caught. She had written something, multiple lines, in dark ink, but not in English, not even in any alphabet she recognized. And beneath those strange markings was a symbol, 3 concentric circles, intersected by precise angles. She didn't remember writing it. She didn't know what it meant, but she felt it, like déjà vu in her bones. That afternoon, she skipped class and drove to the old house. Her mother had passed a year earlier, and the property was untouched. She hadn't entered the place since the funeral. Inside, it smelled of cedar and dust. The same sofa, the same photos, the same little trinket shelf where Eli's school trophies still sat. Rachel stood silently in front of the hallway mirror. Her reflection stared back at her with unfamiliar intensity. Then the phone rang. No one had that number. It was a landline, still connected for bureaucratic reasons. She answered slowly. "Hello?" A pause. Then, a woman's voice, soft but deliberate. "Don't ignore the writing." Rachel's breath caught. "Who is this?" "The symbol you drew. It's not the first time it's come through. You're part of something, Rachel, and you've been asleep long enough." Click. She sat down, heart pounding. How did this woman know? She looked again at the notebook, at the lines of unknown script and the symbol. Something about it pulled at her, like a memory she couldn't access, a word she knew but couldn't pronounce. Rachel took a picture of the page and uploaded it to a private research forum she used for academic work. The linguistics thread was quiet, but she hoped someone might recognize the script, even if it was a hoax. Then she closed her laptop and whispered, "Eli, what's happening to me?" 2 days later, she got a message from a professor in New Mexico. The script resembles ancient Ugaritic, but some characters don't match. One line appears to say, "Return initiated." Also, that symbol? It's in a declassified document from Project Blue Book, page 12. Look it up. Rachel didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat at her kitchen table, scouring PDFs and scanned government files that had been released over the years, half of them redacted. It took hours, but she found it. Page 12, Project Blue Book, document 493C, a blurry black and white photo of a metal panel, allegedly retrieved from an unidentified craft crash in 1956. On its surface, the same symbol. 3 circles, intersecting angles. Rachel stared at it for a long time. And then her phone lit up with a new message. Unknown number. No contact. The next morning, she returned to the spot where Eli had fallen. The trail was now closed. But she slipped past the broken fence and walked alone. The air felt thick, charged. Standing at the edge of the old rock shelf, Rachel closed her eyes. She whispered, If you're real, if that dream was real, I need to know. No answer. No wind, just the slow hum of silence, until she felt pressure in her ears. Like when an airplane climbs too fast. Then a sound, distant, metallic, rising and falling like a tuning fork. Her vision blurred, and suddenly she was standing somewhere else. Not physically, not exactly, but she saw it again. The same violet sky. The same sand with glowing patterns. And Eli. He looked older now. Maybe 15, taller. I told you, I didn't die. Then what happened? He smiled, and for the first time his eyes filled with something human, regret. I was recalled. Recalled? Our time was up. I wasn't meant to stay that long. I lingered because of you. Rachel fell to her knees. You left me. You let me think you were gone. Eli stepped forward. I had to. You wouldn't have awakened otherwise. Awakened to what? He leaned in. To them. To us. To what we were before we wore these bodies. When Rachel opened her eyes again, she was lying on the ground. Alone, hands bleeding once more. But this time she didn't feel afraid. She felt aware. That evening back at home she received a knock at the door. Not a message, not a call, a physical knock. She opened it. A man stood there, late 60s, lean, quiet eyes. Dr. Conrad Myers, he said, handing her a small metal card. I worked for the U.S. government until 2003, on a project you were never supposed to hear about. Rachel hesitated. What do you want from me? Myers gave a thin smile. Nothing. I'm here because you're part of it now, and you need to know why your brother said what he did. You knew Eli? I knew what he was, just like I know what you are. Rachel felt the air shift again. A sentence rose in her mind, unbidden, like someone else had planted it there. I didn't die. I just went back. Rachel stood at her door, staring at the man, claiming to have worked for the government. Dr. Conrad Myers didn't look like a threat. His clothes were plain, his energy calm, but his presence carried a weight she couldn't ignore, as if he existed in two realities at once. She let him in, not because she trusted him, but because something in her recognized him. They sat across from each other at her kitchen table. The same table where, just days earlier, she had stared in disbelief at a notebook written in a language she didn't know, next to a symbol she had somehow remembered. Dr. Myers placed a thick, sealed envelope on the table and slid it toward her. Everything I'm going to tell you is off record, unsanctioned, and very dangerous to talk about. Then why come to me? Because you're not just experiencing this, you're activating it. Rachel narrowed her eyes. What is it? Myers leaned back. Project Theta-Link. The room seemed to pulse slightly. Or maybe it was just her heartbeat in her ears. In the late 1970s, he said, certain divisions within the Department of Defense, ones not acknowledged on paper, began noticing something strange in children who had near-death experiences. They called it retained resonance. Rachel frowned. Resonance with what? Not what, Myers corrected. Where, or more specifically who? He opened the envelope. Inside were grainy black and white photos, EEG scans, handwritten charts, a page with familiar markings. The same script Rachel had written in her sleep. Some of these children began drawing the same symbol, your symbol, long before you were even born. She flipped through the pages in silence. Each one pulled her deeper into a sense of inevitability. Myers continued. What we discovered, or rather what was hinted at, was that some individuals aren't originally from here. From Earth? She asked. From this cycle, this system, this dimension. Rachel rubbed her forehead. Are you saying Eli wasn't human? He was, Myers said, but only in body. The essence, the consciousness, the origin, that's something else, and he wasn't alone. He slid one last paper to her. It was a list of names and dates. One line stood out. Eli Marin, 1986 to 1998. Marked, return-triggered, subject location Sedona Vortex. Rachel's voice shook. You were watching him? No, we were watching for him. Myers got up and walked to the window. Do you know what's beneath this region of Arizona? Rachel shook her head. Minerals, magnetic anomalies, fault lines, but also what we now believe are dimensional weaknesses, places where memory can bleed between lives, where the soul's origin becomes louder. Vortexes, she whispered. Myers nodded. Your house sits on one of the oldest. You ever notice the dreams are stronger here? The pull? Rachel clenched her jaw. And no one ever told me. No one was supposed to. He turned back to her. Project Theta-Link ended, officially, in 2003. But unofficially, it never really stopped. They kept watching, especially people like you. Rachel crossed her arms. People like me? People who aren't just intuitive, not just sensitive, but whose soul pattern doesn't match standard Earth cycle reincarnations. You mean souls that come from other places? Myers gave a solemn nod. We used to call them star origin subjects, volunteers. Incarnated guides. It depends on who you ask, but yes, you're one of them. Rachel stared at him, her pulse steady, oddly. She didn't panic, she didn't feel denial. What she felt was something more dangerous. Recognition. She pulled the notebook from her bookshelf, the one with the strange writing, placed it in front of him. This came through after I saw Eli. He told me he didn't die, that he just went back. Myers gently turned the pages. Yes, he murmured. This is Theta script. You said the children wrote this? Some of them. Others would speak it during deep trance states, hypnagogic visions, but only a few wrote with the precision you did. He looked up at her. Whatever's reactivating, it started with him, but it's spreading through you now. Rachel got up and paced the room. So what happens now? You just show up, tell me I'm some cosmic missionary and leave? No, Myers said. I tell you this so you know what's coming. He pulled something from his coat, a worn, laminated photo. We found this at a supposed crash site in Utah, 1984. Only one piece of wreckage was intact, a storage core shaped like a disc. This was inside. He handed her the photo. Rachel's blood ran cold. The symbol again, but this time glowing, etched into a transparent crystal. Around it, words she now understood without reading. It's not a warning, she whispered. It's a reminder. Myers tilted his head. You're remembering faster than most. Because I've done this before, she said suddenly. Haven't I? Silence. Then Myers spoke softly. We believe that some of you have cycled here multiple times, as messengers, not to dominate, not to escape, but to guide. And when the world begins to fracture, you remember. That night, Rachel returned to the cliff where Eli disappeared. She stood there under a full moon, her hands open to the wind. No vision came, but she knew he was close. She sat on the cold rock, closed her eyes and whispered, What am I supposed to do now? No voice answered, no sound. But her heart began to beat in 3 distinct pulses, rhythmically, unnaturally. She pressed her hand to her chest. The beat matched the symbol, 3 circles, 3 pulses, 3 frequencies. Back at home, she opened her notebook again. A new line had appeared. She hadn't written it, and yet her hand had. The return is not the end, it's the signal. They are watching, they are waiting, for the ones who remember. Rachel didn't sleep for the next 2 nights. Not because she was afraid, but because the moment she closed her eyes, she wasn't herself anymore. She saw landscapes made of crystalline towers, cities that shimmered with light but cast no shadows. Being tall, semi-transparent, who didn't speak but radiated intent, and above everything, a sky that pulsed in rhythm with her chest. Each time she awoke, her notebook had more lines, not scribbles, structured writing in that same alien but familiar script. And slowly she began to understand them. The language wasn't being learned, it was being remembered. She drove to the Sedona cliffs at sunrise. No one else was out there, just the red rock, the dry wind, and the memory of the fall. The place where Eli disappeared, where the earth cracked under his feet, and something else opened in her soul. Rachel sat in silence. She held the old pendant that had belonged to their mother. Inside it, she'd found a folded photo of Eli, his last school portrait. She turned it over. Nothing had ever been written there. But now, somehow, there were words, not in ink, not etched, but burned faintly into the paper, visible only under direct sunlight. It read, She will follow when the grief matures. The one who remembers pain is the one who leads. Her hand trembled. She pressed the pendant to her heart. Back in town, she returned to her mother's old house, still untouched, still haunted by silence. She opened the locked drawer her mother had always kept off limits. Inside, yellow newspaper clippings, photographs, and a letter addressed to Rachel. It was dated 2001, 3 years after Eli's death. My dearest Rachel, if you're reading this, I've passed, and you've begun to remember. I couldn't explain it before, not when you were a child, not when Eli vanished. But you need to know the truth. He was never meant to stay. Eli came here for you. He agreed to wear that body, to love you, to die for you, because you would need the pain. You would need the fracture to open your real eyes. They came to me once, the same ones that came to you. I turned them away. I didn't want the mission. I chose silence. But you were always different. You listened. Forgive me for what I kept. But now, it's your turn. With love, Mom. Rachel sat back, tears running down her face, but no sobs. Just release. A truth finally named. That night, the dream was no longer a dream. It was full immersion. She was standing on a bridge of light suspended in a place that defied geometry. Below her, an ocean of colorless energy. Above, a spiral of glowing forms revolving like galaxies. And walking toward her, Eli, older now, nearly her age, clothed in the same seamless silver-blue uniform from before. His hair moved in slow motion, though there was no wind, and his face radiated peace. He spoke, but his lips never moved. I remember now, Rachel whispered. Good, he said, because it's time. Time for what? For you to remember who you were, before Rachel. Suddenly, her surroundings shifted. Now she stood inside a chamber of light, where a dozen beings sat in stillness, not bodies but shaped presences vibrating with intelligence. The voice spoke. Not Eli's, but larger. Not male, not female, just intent. Cycle 37, Soul Cluster 4E, Designation RLA, Volunteer selected. Placement, Earth, 1986 AD, Gender, Female, Memory Suppression, Active. Trigger Mechanism, Grief-based. Activation Sequence, Successful. Rachel fell to her knees. I'm not Rachel, she whispered. That's just the costume. Eli knelt beside her. You chose the pain. You needed the fracture to awaken compassion, to earn resonance with the lower field. The lower field, Earth, she said. He nodded. Humanity isn't behind, it's compressed. You volunteered to carry the memory of light into density, to bring peace where fear was normal. But why me? Because you remembered last time, and you asked to return. When she opened her eyes, she was back in her bed. But the room wasn't empty. Standing near the window was a woman, tall, with silver hair, wearing civilian clothes, but emanating stillness. Rachel didn't move. The woman smiled gently. My name is Naomi. I've been where you've been. Another volunteer? Rachel asked. Naomi nodded. But I was pulled out before I could finish. My grief wasn't enough. Yours is. She walked closer and placed a hand on Rachel's shoulder. They're going to try to stop you now. Who? Those who fear what you remember. The government? No, Naomi said. The ones behind them. The ones who forgot on purpose. Later that night, Rachel received a file from an encrypted email address. The subject line, Return Sequence Complete. Inside, video footage. A recording of Eli, not as a child, but older, sitting in a medical facility, calmly answering questions in monotone. I agreed to terminate at 12. Pain for her, catalyst for her mind. They won't believe it at first. They'll think it's psychosis or grief disorder. But when she sees the bridge, she'll remember. Rachel closed the laptop slowly, then whispered aloud, I saw the bridge. And she finally knew. Eli never died. He just returned. And now, so had she. Rachel didn't leave the house the next morning, not because she was afraid, because she knew they were already here. The white SUV had been parked 2 houses down since just before sunrise. Windows blacked out. No plates, no movement. But it didn't need any. She felt its purpose before she saw it. Naomi hadn't slept either. She stayed in the guest room silent most of the night, as if in meditation. At 7:03 a.m., she walked into the kitchen and said, They're not here to talk. They're here to shut the signal. Rachel looked up from her notebook. What signal? Naomi pointed to Rachel's chest. You. Every time you remember, every time your grief aligns with clarity, you project a frequency. It's not just emotional, it's energetic, and it's spreading. You mean others are waking up? Naomi nodded slowly. That was always the mission. The volunteers don't come to save. They come to remind me. One memory at a time, one heart at a time. The knock came at exactly 7:44 a.m. 3 slow raps. Controlled. Deliberate. Rachel didn't answer. Naomi pressed a finger to her lips and nodded toward the hallway. They moved quickly, gathering only what was essential, the notebook, the pendant, and the encrypted flash drive Dr. Myers had left behind. As they slipped through the back exit, the voice came, over a speaker or device. Male, neutral, no accent. Miss Marin, we'd like to ask you a few questions regarding unauthorized data transfers and unusual correspondence with a defector known as Myers. There's no need to hide. This is for your protection. Rachel froze for a second. Naomi whispered, They're not lying. They just don't know what they're protecting you from. They put it into the woods behind the property. Sedona's dry wilderness was dense enough to hide their path. And Rachel somehow knew the trails better than she should have. Like she had walked them before, in another life. They reached an abandoned structure, a cement foundation, half walls still standing, roof gone. Naomi sat and finally explained. These agents don't understand what they're part of. They're reacting to phenomenon, not meaning. They've seen effects, psychokinetic episodes, visions, unexplainable transmissions. What they haven't seen is the source. Rachel looked down. And what exactly am I? The source? No, you're the mirror. Of what? Naomi paused, then finally said, of the light they buried. Hours later, Rachel's phone vibrated. No signal, no bars, but a message appeared on the lock screen, just like before. They're coming tonight. Don't be afraid. Rachel knew that didn't mean Eli. It meant everyone. That night, Naomi brought her to a spot deep in the desert. No roads, no lights, just sand, rock, and sky. You have to do it now, Naomi said, while you still remember. Do what? Speak. Into the field, activate others. I don't know what to say. Yes, you do. Rachel stepped into the clearing, closed her eyes, the wind calmed, the air warmed, and something in her chest clicked. Then, she spoke, but not in English, not in any human language. It flowed from her like breath, like emotion shaped into sound. Her voice layered, not one, but many. She spoke the words of her soul before it became Rachel. Before grief, before earth, before time. Somewhere across the world, others stirred. A young man in Brazil woke up crying, a circle burned into his palm. A woman in Cairo saw a boy with silver eyes in her dream, whispering, she's calling now. A child in Tokyo drew the exact symbol Rachel had written in chalk on a school wall. The signal had gone out, and someone had noticed. Back at the house, Dr. Myers appeared just before dawn, bruised and pale. They're in containment mode now, he said. 3 others like you were intercepted yesterday. 2 were sedated. 1 disappeared. Disappeared? Rachel asked. They erased her. Not killed. Erased. Her name no longer appears on any database, not even birth records. Why? Myers sat heavily. Because once the activation completes, you stop being readable to them. Your energy no longer registers. You become invisible to the system. And they hate what they can't control. Rachel looked at her reflection in the window that morning and barely recognized herself. Not because she looked different, but because she finally knew who was looking back. Later that day, she wrote a short message in her notebook. They are not aliens. They are not spirits. They are us. Unfiltered, and they've always been trying to get us to listen. That night, the same white SUV drove past the house, but this time it didn't stop. Inside, an agent looked down at his screen. Rachel Marin's profile was gone, as if she had never existed. They told her it wouldn't hurt, but they were wrong. The process wasn't physical, not in the way Rachel expected. It wasn't a beam of light or a teleportation or an abduction. It was much deeper, something slower. She was being unmade, not erased, released. Naomi stood beside her in the cave-like chamber, built into the red stone cliffs far beyond Sedona's edge. The entrance was hidden. The path wasn't marked, but Rachel had known exactly where to go, without a map, without hesitation. This place is older than language, Naomi whispered. Some say it was here before the first incarnation, before even time itself was linear. Rachel knelt on the circular platform etched with symbols, the same ones from her dreams, the same ones from her notebook, the same ones that had appeared in ancient carvings from cultures never supposed to have contact. But now she knew. They did have contact, through people like her. So what happens now? Rachel asked. Naomi placed a hand on her shoulder. She looked tired. Her own mission almost finished. You return, but not like Eli did. You won't come back with a name, or a form, or even a voice. Then how will they know I was here? Naomi smiled. Because what you are now never leaves. Back at her old home, Dr. Myers opened Rachel's final message. He had received it exactly 33 minutes after her disappearance. No metadata, no trace of origin. The file had simply appeared inside his private archive. Inside, one single video, Rachel stood in the center of a dark room. Her hair was unbound, her eyes calm. No fear, no confusion. If you're watching this, she began, you've felt it too. That something isn't quite right with the story you were told. About life, about death, about memory. I thought my brother died. That's what they said. That's what I believed. But he didn't. He just went back. And now, so have I. The footage cut to a symbol, 3 concentric circles, pulsing softly, then black. In the following weeks, strange reports began to surface. Psychics in California began channeling the same phrase in different languages. She finished the signal. In Romania, a monastery's stained glass window fractured under direct sunlight, revealing behind it a previously hidden symbol, Rachel's symbol, etched into the stone. In Tokyo, an elderly woman claimed her daughter, who had died at birth, appeared at the foot of her bed and whispered she brought the others home. In government archives, Rachel's name had vanished. No digital records, no passport, no birth certificate, but something else took its place. A case file, unnamed, marked Subject 0RLA Final Phase Activation. Status out of field, pattern signature untraceable, last transmission, stable. Peaceful. Somewhere, not in space, but in a dimension of stillness, Rachel stood again on the bridge of light. Eli appeared beside her. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They looked down at Earth, not from above but from within, and watched as new points of light began to awaken. All across the world, one by one, people remembering, people feeling it in their bones. Not knowledge, truth. And somewhere in a small school in New Mexico, a young girl stopped drawing and looked up at her teacher. "My big sister's not dead," she said. "Oh?" the teacher asked gently. "She's the light now. She's helping the others find their way back." The teacher paused. "What's her name?" The girl smiled. "Rachel." Final note, written inside Rachel's original notebook, now sealed in glass. Death was never the end. Grief was never the enemy. The body is a bridge, not a destination. I didn't die, I just went back.